Introduction. The term democracy. The term democracy is drawn from two Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratia, meaning power. Thus, literally democracy means the power of the people. To learn the basic concept of democracy, let's take an imaginary example. Imagine a territory situated far away from the civilized world and populated by small size of population. People in the territory are living in disorderly manner. In such a situation, each one will be thinking of betterment of himself and his own interests. There will be fights over means of food, firewood. Livestock of weaker will be snatched away by the stronger ones. Rules of might and right will prevail in the group. Conflicting interests will make everyone suffer. It will give rise to rivalry, competition. When the internal security is endured, there is a fear of external aggression. So people will need protection from foreign aggression as well. This will make the people realize that there are some problems which are to be solved collectively. So, they will come together and discuss their problems and the remedies to them. Gradually, they will form into an organized group. This will not take place in one meeting. To begin with, all people of territory will come together and will take collective decisions in the interests of the whole group. For making and implementing laws which are beneficial to all, the government is necessary. Besides, for maintaining internal peace and order and for protection for external aggression, a body called government will be needed. In the beginning, all people of the territory will come together to make collective decisions to solve problems before them. A few people who are representatives of the whole group will form a governing body and rule over the group. Thus, people will participate in the decision-making through their representatives and elect their rulers to implement the decisions. This will be a democratic system. This is the process of formation of democratic government. From this, we can say that democracy is the government created by the people, run through their own elected representatives to protect their own interests and the interests of the society. Learning objective. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to explain the features of democracy, describe the forms of democracy, explain the diversity in society, explain the various challenges before democracy, describe the correlation between diversity and unity and democratic politics, explain diversity and inequality. Features of democracy. Now, let us understand the meaning of democracy by studying some basic features of democracy. Elected representatives of people and final decision-making power to the representatives, rulers are elected by the people, is an underlying thing in democracy. This means in democracy, real power rests in the hands of elected representatives of the people. In some countries, elected representatives do not have final decision-making powers. For example, in Pakistan, elected representatives had some powers, but sometimes final decisions are taken by military officers. This means that in democracy, people should elect their representatives and real power should rest in the hands of those representatives. Free and fair elections. Elections in free and fair atmosphere are essential in democracy. In China, elections are regularly held after every 5 years for electing their parliament. But only members of Communist Party of China are allowed to contest elections. So, government in China is always formed by the Communist Party. In Mexico, Since its independence in 1930, elections held after every 6 years to elect their president. In spite of elections in China, the people do not get real right to elect their representatives. In both examples, there was no way the ruling party could be defeated, even if people were against it. So, a democracy must be based on free and fair elections, where those currently in power have possibility to getting removed from the power. Universal adult franchise. With each vote having equal value. The principle of universal adult franchise is accepted almost all over the world. Every adult citizen must have equal right to vote. Elections in democracy will be meaningless if equal right to vote is denied to the citizens. However, there are many countries where equal right to vote is denied. For example, in UAE, women have no right to vote. In Estonia, citizenship rules are formed in such a way that people belonging to Russia minority find it difficult to get the right to vote. In democracy, each adult citizen must have one vote, and each vote must have one value. Fundamental rights and protection of freedom. In democracy, fundamental rights of the citizens are respected. For example, freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom to approach the courts for protection of rights, etc. are some important rights. In democracy, government cannot do whatever it likes, simply because it has won elections. In democracy, elected government has certain rights and responsibilities against the constitution and the law. Forms of democracy. Right from the ancient times, this democratic government has experienced various transitions. Democracy into two types. Direct democracy. Democracy based on direct participation of citizens is known as direct democracy. Here, there is direct participation of citizens in decision-making process. Hence, people could not directly rule over themselves. This means people were sovereign in real sense. In modern times, population has increased. Similarly, public issues also are getting complicated. Indirect democracy. In modern democratic states, all citizens do not take active part in the affairs of the government. Citizens elect their representatives who can think, speak, and act on behalf of people and implement policies. The democratic form in which elected representatives run the government is called indirect or representatives democracy. Indirect or representatives democracy is two types: presidential democracy and parliamentary democracy. In England and India, parliamentary democracy is in existence, whereas presidential democracy exists in USA and France. Ways of increasing people participation in modern times. In today's situation, direct democracy is impractical, but in indirect democracy, people do not have sufficient opportunity to participate. Some countries have adopted some measures for encouraging people's participation. Let's learn about each one of them in detail. Recall. To call back the representatives. In indirect democracy, people's representatives rule for a specific period of time, but if the representative is not properly discharging responsibilities, they can be called back with the written request of specific numbers of voters. Initiative. Proposal of law through public. Proposing and making law is responsibility of the legislature. However, when citizens propose a law, it is called initiative. This right is enjoyed by the citizens of Switzerland. Referendum. To take opinion of people on public issues. This method is adopted to know public opinion on some important public issues and thereby include the public in decision-making process. Plebiscite. People's opinion on proposal of law. Opinion of the people on political, social or economic issues is taken through referendum. However, method of plebiscite is adopted to get approval of citizens on the law passed by the legislature. This is called plebiscite. For example, an Australian plebiscite is needed for amending the constitution. Challenges regarding personal liberty. Liberty of every individual is treated as very important in a democracy. One feature of democracy is to give adequate opportunity to everyone for one's own development. To practice, in many countries, we find that citizens' rights are restricted. Let's look at 3 limitations of personal liberty. Social pressure. One stage of democracy is to grant rights to everyone through the Constitution. Social pressure is a big challenge. Let's consider 2 examples. Intercaste marriages are allowed by law, but acceptability of such marriages is very limited in the society. As a result, a social pressure automatically builds up against intercaste marriages. Something happens in case of equal rights for women. Law gives women the rights, but society is not favorable for women taking up some type of education or specific jobs. Both these examples show how social pressure can limit personal liberty. Intolerance. Tolerance means accepting that opinions of others can be different from one's own opinion, and so allowing other opinions can be expressed. An indication of tolerance is to accept that groups having different rituals and life practices from our practices and way of life have to adopt their own practices. Such tolerance is a necessary component of democracy. Possibility of democracy's success is proportionate to the extent of tolerance in the society. Conversely, if the society is intolerant, then it becomes a challenge before democracy. Security and personal liberty. Government have to take extra caution about security of the people in the view of organized crime and terrorism. It is the duty of the government to take measures for the security of the citizens. But while fulfilling that duty, it should be curtailing personal liberties. Challenges about participation. Let's look at the factors affecting the challenges about participation. People's perception is the core of democracy. It is of course necessary that the rulers should be elected by the people. But it is equally necessary that citizens should keep watch on the functioning of the government. Participating by people can be of 4 ways. Electing representatives. To keep a watch on the functioning of the representatives. To take interest in and participate in the administration of one's own locality. To participate in the making of national policies. Low voter turnout. Elections are important in a democracy because people elect their representatives through elections. These representatives decide the policies of a country and look after the administration of the country. In India, an average 58% people vote in Lok Sabha elections. Limited initiative by people. Voter turnout indicates that people are not very much interested in policy activity. Citizens do attend political meeting, but to take an initiative and discuss about government's policy, to organize people, etc., are activities in which there is very limited participation by people. Opportunities of participation and complex nature of governance. Running a government has become complex, even if we are taking decisions about a small town. It involves many complicated rules and details regarding procedures. Besides, not many opportunities exist beyond voting in public affairs. We elect our representatives and then meet and discuss and take decisions. Then, ministers and officers look all administration. In all this, after the elections, there is little scope for people to take part. When political leaders and people active in politics are convinced that people should participate more in politics and in governing the society, the various measures are devised for this purpose. Political parties undertake membership campaign and try to involve people in party work. Challenges of inequality. All societies entertain some notions of superiority and inferiority. In India, this division is based on caste. In the US, this is done on the basis of color. All societies have such divisions between women and men, between rich and poor. When society is thus divided on the assumption of superiority or inferiority of one group, it is called inequality. Let's look at the factors affecting the challenges of inequality. Social inequality, caste, religion, and gender are bases on which a superior-subordinate division is made. These have adverse impact on democracy. In order to implement democracy in an unequal society, the challenge to tackle inequality needs to be handled. If this is not done, democracy cannot be successful. It is necessary to ensure these groups have adequate power. These measures are expected to bridge the distance among distant groups and reduce inequality. Economic inequality. In a society having power and unemployment, democracy experiences limitation. The objective of democracy is to achieve the well-being of all the citizens. So, democracy has to take the responsibility to reduce poverty and make all basic amenities available for the poor. In situations of extreme poverty, democracy remains only in name, or it is endangered due to social rebellion. Regional inequality. In some countries, some regions are more developed than other regions, and some are less developed. This is described as regional inequality. As a result, there is pressure on the developed regions. Amenities in large cities are strained. Differences arise between the natives and insiders in these regions and lead to social tensions. On the other hand, in backward regions, a feeling emerges that injustice is done to it and that government is not attending to problems. Many times, a language issue is added to the regional problem, leading to a feeling that one linguistic group is doing injustice on people of the other languages. Diversity in society. No society is uniform in all respects. Some differences are determined by birth and the other is based on the characteristics that we ourselves acquire. Similarly, our place of birth decides our regional character. Differences determined by hobbies, occupation or skills is the other type of distinct nature. We also find that people around us belong to different groups. They speak different languages and different regions. Their occupations are also different. That is why we classify people as farmers, traders, shopkeepers, white-collar employees, etc. Normally, we don't find any society that is completely homogeneous. Such societies are diverse and others less diverse. For instance, in the Chinese society, spread on a huge land stretch is homogeneous in terms of language. This means Chinese is the only language spoken there. Diversity and unity. In olden days, it was believed that unity can be created and maintained easily if the society is homogeneous. For the small and less diverse societies of Europe, this idea was indeed applicable. But in the 20th century, intermixing has increased across the world. Diversity and democratic politics. It was believed in the past that democracy may be successful if society is homogeneous. Therefore, homogeneity was almost treated as a necessary condition for successful democracy. Countries like India have practiced democracy successfully. Now, it is believed that democracy helps in protecting diversity and that a democratic society can handle diversity better. Diversity and inequality. Many times, one particular group aspires to be more powerful and dominant. This produces not only competition among different groups, such claims also produce inequality. Caste diversity. Indian society consists of castes. This feature is more about inequality than diversity. In this hierarchy, some castes are supported to be upper and some lower. Among the castes treated as lower castes traditionally, there is a high proportion of persons engaged in lower occupations and low incomes. Mahatma Phule was the first to emphasize that the true measure of ending caste inequality is to end caste. Shahu Maharaj also tried for the development of backward castes. This same view was expressed in South India by Periyar Ramaswamy Nayyakar. Dr. Ambedkar also constantly argued and worked for the abolition of untouchability and caste. Inequality between men and women. The division of human society into males and females is in fact based only on biological differences. But actual social relations are always based on unequal relations between men and women. Tarabai Shinde wrote a book called Stree Purush Tulna, in which she expressed the issues of women inequality. Tarabai hails from family belonged to the Satya Shodak and was follower of Mahatma Phule. During last 100 years, many organizations raised voices against injustice against women. Due to the pressure of the women's motivations in the 20th century, gradually many countries granted the right to vote to women. In India too, discussions are going on for increasing the political participation of women. Efforts are also going on to provide reserved seats for women. Efforts are also made for bringing about gender equality in matters other than political rights. Let's discuss the ways to resolve issue of gender inequality. Women's organization and social awareness, legal provisions protecting women, implementation of welfare schemes, special provisions for ensuring share in power for women. Religious diversity and democracy. It is necessary that there are cordial relations among different religions where people of different religions are living together. Otherwise, diversity may lead to inequality and conflict. People of different religions such as Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Buddha, etc. live in India. So India has adopted the policy of secularism from beginning. Many a times, people participate in each other's religious functions. Let's discuss the measures adopted to ensure peaceful coexistence of people of different religions. Allow every person to adopt a religion for his or her choice and faith and follow the religion in worship and prayers. This is called freedom of religion. Government must treat persons of all religions equally. Equal respect for all religions is a part of his measure. Handling religious diversity in protecting minority religious groups. and taking special care for their development. Diversity and share in power. A society with diversity presents one more challenge for democracy. When different groups aspire for power, distribution of power among them becomes a crucial issue. Distribution of power in a federation. There are different methods of distribution power among different groups. Federal system of government is adopted, wherein a method of distributing power among the regions within the country is often adopted. Under this system, the Constitution itself creates governments at the regional level and decides the powers of the regional level governments. Summary. You have learned that a democracy must be based on free and fair elections, where those currently in power have possibility of getting removed from the power. One feature of democracy is to give adequate opportunity to everyone for one's own development. All societies entertain some notions of superiority and inferiority. Democracy based on direct participation of citizens is known as direct democracy. The democratic, from in which elected representatives run the government, is called indirect or representative democracy. Indian society consists of castes. This feature is more about inequality than diversity.